Support for Consider This is provided by
There's a new place for senior care with daily laundry service. A place with a day spa. A place where seniors get the care they need in the comfort of home. Home Instead Senior Care.
from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Maybe the best thing we can say about winter storms is that they usually give us plenty of warning. There are times when the National Weather Service can even spot a storm as much as 7 days out.
They will be able to put out some type of an outlook, even that far out, that hey, there may be a strong winter storm that affects our area, and to be aware.
As the storm gets closer, you might hear about watches and warnings. A winter storm watch means a storm is possible. A winter storm warning means one is definitely headed for your area. If you hear a blizzard warning, get ready to spend some time inside. Strong winds, blinding, wind-driven snow, and a dangerous wind chill are coming.
But they're not here yet, which means there's still time. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, winterizing your home. Joining us to talk more about it are Sarah Campbell, utilization engineer at Metropolitan Utilities District in the marketing division, and John Fesh, extension educator and ISA certified arborist for UNL's Metro District. Thank you both for being here and welcome.
You bet.
Okay, Sarah, we're going to start with you. This is obviously a topic that crops up every year, yet some people don't really do too much about it. What would you say to our viewers right now to kind of help engage them in this discussion?
I would say there's some small, relatively inexpensive updates that they can make to their home for the winter that are going to help them save money on their energy costs and also keep their home safe.
Perfect. Okay, John, let's head outdoors first. And before we really drill down, set that transitional stage for us a bit.
So what we're really looking at are plants that are moving from warm sunshine into cooler and sunny, and then finally windy and cold. And so there is kind of a transition from late summer around Labor Day into the time period of Halloween, and then finally once we move into mid-November and Thanksgiving. So you can almost just look at the fall holidays and realize that the plants are doing different things. Their plants are shutting down. They're starting to go dormant. Trees, shrubs, flowers, bulbs, even turf grass are starting to go dormant.
Based on the weather that we've had thus far, what kind of condition are we in overall going into this?
Yeah, we're in pretty good condition. We've had a good summer, good adequate moisture. We had a little bit different flip-flop with August and September, but it's all going to equal out. And the insects, actually, good weather for insects too. We have an entomologist in our office, and a lot of people have been going his way in terms of why are we dealing with all these little insects around too. So they've been enjoying it as well. And you know, when we come to knowing that transition, just knowing that we're in pretty good shape moisture-wise really helps a lot of our plant material. If we had had a really dry summer and then a dry earlier part of the fall, boy, then we'd really start to have problems, because if you go into the winter with dry plants, dry root zones, that's kind of like a double whammy. But up till now, we've been in pretty good shape.
Is there anything folks should be doing before winter actually hits when it comes to the moisture factor?
Yes, they should. And if I had gone low tech or high tech, I'd have a long screwdriver here. And that's something that you can just pull out of the garage and stick it in the ground at various places, especially with new plantings, Kathy. You know, if you've got a new tree in the ground or some shrubs, or you've just planted some material, you want to make sure they stay moist headed into the winter. And if the winds come up or we have predicted rains that we actually don't get, we're going to have dry soils, even though it's been moist up till now. So from Halloween up to Christmas, moist but not soggy and not dry. And that's what that screwdriver is for. You stick it in the ground, you pull it out, you play little Jack Horner with the, you know, what a good boy am I, you know, and you're looking at how moist that soil is, how much muddy soil sticks to the end of the blade of the screwdriver. If it's muddy, it's a little bit on the wet side. If it's dry and powdery, you need to do some irrigation. Excellent.
Okay, so let's start with trees and those all important branches. What can we be doing right now to gear up for the change?
Really need an inspection, and you can do that initially yourself. just by looking at the trees. You're looking for branches that are rubbing and crossing like this. You know, this is a football thing that the defense uses that's kind of cool, but, well, I thought it was funny. At any rate, rubbing branches are not really good in the wintertime. Anything broken that's hanging down, branches that are growing closely parallel to each other, not so good. As well as anything soft and decayed on the inside. This is a visual inspection that you need to take care of. And if you need to hire an arborist to help you with that, that's great. You know, there are lots of opportunities. You can go to the Nebraska Arborist Association webpage, and there's a little button you can click on, find an arborist. They can help you. An ISA the same way. And they can help you do that inspection. Looking for flaws, cracks, decay, rubbing branches, all those different things you want to have taken care of. And then you need to, once you decide you have that problem, once you observe that problem with or without the help of the arborist, there's a time to do that. Pruning and removal of a lot of these defects is really best done in late winter. Some of the research that we've been following out of Europe, as well as some of the research that we've been doing at land-grant universities across the Midwest, indicates that the branches will actually close better. Trees don't really heal per se, like we do as humans when you cut yourself, but they do isolate wounds and they do compartmentalize injury. And when you have that opportunity, you want to do it at a time when the tree is actively growing and able to close better. So if we did that pruning now, as we head into winter, it'll have 4 months to dry out. And so we really want to wait until late winter to do the actual pruning.
So let me ask, for those ambitious folks out there who are already starting to think about pulling out the ladders and wanting to do it themselves, is there anything that you could tell them prior to heading up there, kind of the do's and don'ts, especially what not to do when you're actually trimming those branches, cutting those back?
Great question. The first thing not to do is anything bigger than a step ladder that's about 6 feet tall, leave to an arborist. We don't like people, it's not safe to have people putting an extension ladder like they would use for painting their house. A house surface is pretty stable, it's not going anywhere. But a tree surface is not. You know, these are flexible branches that bounce and move around in the wind, and there's really no way to stabilize that. That's why arborists do a lot of study on how to climb trees properly, how to use ropes, how to cable and brace inside a tree, and that's why they've devoted themselves to that profession. So anything you can't reach from the ground or even on a small ladder should be left in the hands of a professional, and they have the tools and the equipment and the disposal methods to really help you get that done.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the gutters, right? Because it's fall, so the leaves are heading somewhere, right? So let's talk about proper, clearing of those and why doing it a certain way is so important.
Well, again, there you have the situation where safety is important. Now, fortunately with gutters, with a little bit of an extension or a pushback bar on your extension ladder, that can be done safely for the most part. And sometimes it's kind of fun to have a person on the ground with a big basket catching the leaves that you're pulling out. But really we ought to think about composting those leaves. And it's a resource that can be made in your yard with just simply piling the leaves up, adding a little bit of soil. The soil has microorganisms in it that help break it down, and then adding a little bit more, kind of like a layer cake, and making your own, and that really works really well. So you're thinking about these leaves not as a chore or not as a detriment, but more of as an asset. It's something that's desirable. It's like what we call black gold. It's a material that nature provides, will eventually turn from brown and red and gold into black, that black rich humus that we need to help break up clay, especially if you live in a new subdivision. If it's a 10-year-old subdivision or less, it's a fairly new subdivision, you're probably stuck with heavy clay, really crummy soil. And that black gold is what you need to work into it to help your garden grow better.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to drive by homes and see those gutters filled up. It's obviously not much that people look forward to get on a ladder and clean those out. But I want to talk for a minute about the consequences of allowing that to build up too much. I mean, eventually that water has nowhere to go except over or the other direction. So when we talk about someone's home, what kind of damage, potential damage, are we talking about if we let those things fill up, too much and don't do anything about it?
Right. My understanding is generally then you're developing what's called an ice dam, and where the the water can't drain out of the gutter, and so it builds back up onto the steepness of the roof itself, under the shingles, and back up on the shingles. As soon as it gets a little bit of warmth on a warm day, it starts to melt, working its way into the attic itself. And that can be a real problem for a number of reasons. It could start softening the tiles, it can start ruining the decking of the house, getting in, just a number of different problems that you can have. So cleaning the gutters out is good. What you were referring to before, where you actually see the leaves staying there for a long time, we call that gutter composting, where you instead of taking the leaves out, they're allowed to, you see trees growing in them, you know, and all kinds of problems. Definitely something that's a good idea. And again, if you're not able to do that physically, it's certainly a good idea to hire that. There are a number of different services that you can hire to help you clean out the gutters, and usually not terribly expensive, but very important to do this time of year.
Yeah, mesh coverings, we hear about those too. How do you feel about those, John?
Some work really well, and some are not as good. I think it's probably a good idea to visit a home show and visit them, and there's always one of those in the fall. So look at their products, see what kind of warranty they have, how much of their material is going to be pulled out on average. I think overall it's a good investment in the long-term maintenance of the home, but some work better than others. I've known some to actually cause more problems because they sort of make a fine dust in the gutter and cause it to clog just as badly as the leaves would. So.
Okay, well, let's come down from the trees and
Okay.
from the roof and talk a little bit surface. So grass, most important thing to know right now about that.
Need to feed it a little bit, especially if you didn't do any feeding it at Labor Day. Fertilization of turf is done on cool season grasses in eastern Nebraska, at least, on 4 holidays. Those would be Arbor Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and Halloween. At this time of the year, we're thinking about what's called a winterizer fertilizer, and we happen to have a product of that like right here. You can just look for the bag. It'll somewhere on there, it'll say winterizer, and it has a good amount of phosphorus, or has no phosphorus in it, sorry. It would have nitrogen and potassium, that last number. And so what we're really looking for there is a final feeding of the year.
Okay.
Research at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln has indicated that we don't really need as much as once we thought. We used to really load it up, put on probably 1.5 pounds up to 2 pounds of nitrogen at this point in the year. But looking at things more environmentally and looking at the fate of the nitrogen, found that some of it moves downward in soil profile, possibly causing problems with groundwater. Some of it is moved into the atmosphere, and some of it runs out in the street, especially in a town like River City, where everyone's got a steep driveway or steep lawn. So it becomes really important to just put on about 1/3 what the label rate would call for on a bag like that. And it's pretty easy to do, and just adjust the spreader setting accordingly.
Okay.
We also have guidelines for that if they want to contact us at the office. And we have a new blog called Grow Big Red.
Grow
Big Red, not Go Big Red, but Grow Big Red. And there are instructions on that and all kinds of topics. We update that 5 times a week. There are 5 of us on our team, and so Grow Big Red would be a great place for the viewers to go to and find information on all these topics that we've talked about so far.
Okay, now I'm just going to visualize that I'm outside and I'm getting a little tired now and I want to come indoors. So that's where Sarah comes into play, right? So Sarah, if you were talking with somebody and they were to say, what is the most important thing for me to consider when it comes to winterizing my home indoors? John's done a great job of setting the stage for us. Outside a bit, but inside, what should we be paying the greatest attention to?
One of the most valuable things that you can do for your home in the winter is have an annual heating inspection by a qualified HVAC contractor. When they do those inspections, they're going to be able to double check things in your furnace, in your chimney, to keep your home safe and the energy efficiency there.
Okay, so I'm thinking that sounds like pretty good advice, but I Google, I do whatever I need to do to try to figure out who's out there that's willing and able to do that. How do I know who to pick? Because sometimes there are so many choices. Are there certain questions I should be asking somebody on the phone before I actually have them come in to conduct this inspection?
You would want to ask them what their packages entail, what kinds of things that they do. There's a kind of a wide variety of different things that each individual contractor might take into consideration. You would want to make sure that they're going to be checking the burners on your furnaces, checking the ductwork to make sure that airflow is working well, checking your pilot light, and then calibrating your thermostat. So I would think that those are some of the more important things that you would want to get checked, and then also your chimneys as well to make sure that they're unblocked and flowing properly.
Yeah, are chimneys something that people think about a whole lot?
I would say that chimneys aren't something that's at the top of your mind. You know, you might think about your furnace first, but your chimney might go unrecognized.
I think it's like everything else, right? We go to it, we just assume that everything's going to be working properly. We light that match and hope that the wood is burning and warming our homes well. So this inspection that you talked about, how long does that take generally?
I would say it probably varies based on the contractor and how much service they're providing you, since everyone kind of has a different package that they provide. I would assume somewhere around an hour or two, just depending on what you get.
Okay, and when it comes to cost, because I think that's sometimes when people put the brakes on, it's like, I can't afford to do this. What are we talking?
I would say ballpark would be around $70 to $100, depending on what you're getting with that package. But this would be the right time to go out and check, research online, call some different contractors, and find out if they have any specials going. They might be doing that now since we're getting closer to the heating season, so that they might be able to get that service at a discount.
Okay, all right. I want to change gears a little bit and let's talk pipes, because that's a pretty big deal. Winterizing your home. What is important to know when it comes to the pipes?
Well, when water freezes, it's going to expand, so we want to take some steps to make sure that we're not going to be bursting any of the pipes inside of our homes. So if you're going to be home for the winter, some simple things you can do are draining your hoses outside the home, and then just making sure that your air is circulating freely around any of your plumbing inside your home. Sometimes homeowners will shut off the heat in certain rooms, and then that airflow is not getting around their plumbing, and then they can have a pipe burst there. So you want to make sure that if you have cabinets underneath your sink, that those are open and you're able to get the airflow going to the plumbing if you have some of the heat shut off in some of those rooms.
See, I found that interesting too when I was doing a little research on this. We don't think to do some of this stuff, and it's pretty simple, really, when you think about it. We do have a graphic, Sarah, that we want to put up for our viewers. Yeah. We have some snowbirds, right? So things that you should be doing when you're going to be leaving your home for an extended period of time, if you want to walk us through those.
Yeah. One of the most important things I would say is keeping the furnace on and just setting that at a lower temperature. You don't want to turn the furnace all the way off, because in that situation you might end up freezing those pipes very easily and then coming home to a not great situation.
Yeah.
And then if you have a neighbor or a friend that can help you out, just having that person come over and run your faucets daily just to keep the water flowing through them. If you don't have that ability, then the water can be turned off at the stop box by MUD. We do that for a fee, and then that basically just has your water shut off, so it's not even able to run into your home. And then after that stop box is shut off, you would need to drain out the pipes and the toilets and any of the water lines to make sure that they're dry and that there's water not sitting in those.
Excellent. Okay, I want to talk for a minute about insulation. Right, you've talked about chimneys and pipes and the heating inspection. Insulation, I think that's also one of those things where, you know, we kind of have it installed and then it's in the attic, we forget about it. We don't really go back there to try to follow up. What should we be thinking about when it comes to that?
Like you said, insulation is not really something that we think about immediately, but some of the poor insulation in an attic can cause 20 to 30% of your heat to just dissipate through the roof. So you're losing that energy efficiency and the cost of your energy bill is going up. So what you want to do is make sure that you have a high enough R value in your insulation to adequately keep your home heated. So for attics, the Department of Energy recommends an R38 value for the attic insulation, and then for sidewalls an R16. So you can get up into that attic, and if you see it's in really bad condition, maybe you just need to go out and replace that insulation with a higher R value insulation for your attic especially.
Okay, so as we're walking through the home here, anything I have forgotten, Sarah, that you want to make sure viewers know in terms of that mental checklist? What should I be thinking about?
Kind of one simple thing that viewers can do is kind of turning down their temperature in their home when they're out of the house. You can set that programmable thermostat, if you have it, down to a lower temperature when you're gone for the day or when you're sleeping at night, so you can put those blankets on and not keep the temperature as high. If you turn your thermostat down a degree, you can save about 3% on your energy costs. If you turn it down 7 degrees, you can save up to 24% on your energy costs. So turning the thermostat down really goes a long way.
Wow, I wanted to ask both of you. You're both educators. You're out in the community talking to people of all age groups, I would imagine. When it comes to this particular topic, Sarah, is there anything that's coming to mind in terms of just a very interesting question or just something that you've talked about that's triggered a greater interest for folks, or maybe a group of people you love going to visit with?
Oh, yeah. At MUD, I'm a member of our Employee Speakers Bureau, so we reach out to different community groups, schools, neighborhood associations throughout our service area. And one of the presentations we typically do is Live Green, Think Blue. We teach people to reduce their energy consumption and conserve their water, because everyone wants to know, how can I save on my water bill? How can I save on my energy bill? So we can get out there and give those presentations to them and give them these tips, and then sometimes we hear back from them later, thank you for these tips that you gave us. I was able to save on my bill and it really worked well for me. So we offer those programs for free for the community, and they're listed on our website. So we could come speak to many different groups on those topics.
Thank you. And John, you've been doing this for just a little while.
Yes, I have.
What were you saying, 30 plus years?
30 plus years. One of the things that actually brings me to mind is for this year, and with the 2 invasive pests that we've been dealing with most lately, the emerald ash borer and the Japanese beetle, a lot of people have removed older trees from their landscape, older lindens and certainly green and white ash. And so they've put in new trees, and they've done a lot of tree replacement. One thing that's really important at this time of year in terms of winterization is protecting the bark on these young trees. And again, I've chosen to go low tech on this. This is just a piece of pipe that's been cut apart with a Dremel tool. And so what you do is you just pull this apart and then slip the tree around the tree trunk. And what that does is it really helps to prevent from gnawing mice and voles and rabbits and all sorts of critters. They just love in the wintertime, especially when it snows. Okay, so the snow will come along about to here, and they'll walk across the top of the snow, and they'll still not be able to get to the young tree bark, because really the tender bark underneath a newly planted tree is about all they have to eat. And yes, it'd be nice if we could feed the animals, but not my tree is what, most people don't want to feed them their newly planted Kentucky coffee tree. Right. So this is really important, especially for fruit trees, because all of them have tender bark, but maple and any of the thinner bark trees really are easily damaged at this time of the year. So, when it starts getting cold, when the lawn is turned brown for the winter, right around Thanksgiving is a really good time to install some simple device like this.
Okay, excellent. We have about 90 seconds, John, and I see you've brought a few other things. So in 90 seconds, what can you tell us that's important to note about your props?
If you want color in the spring, you've got to plant them in the fall. And so these are hyacinths, these are crocus, and these are daffodils. And there's still time all the way up until the soil freezes hard in order to get these bulbs in the ground. Bulbs should be firm, and bulbs should be relatively large. and they should be planted at the right depth. There is extensive information on each of these packages, how deep to plant them, how to modify the soil. So all you have to do is read the label. I know people don't like to read small print like this, but it really does provide a lot of good information. So if you want this kind of color in the spring, planting in the fall is really going to be helpful and brighten up the landscape.
So how do you know, when you have a couple of freezes, how do you know that you're okay to do it, John?
Well, temperature, and Sarah can probably help me with this too, but temperature in the soil stays relatively constant as you move down deep into the soil. Stays pretty much a constant 55 as you keep moving your way down into the soil. So air temperature, ambient air temperature is a lot different than soil temperature. So a couple really hard freezes, that kind of puts the kibosh on it, but throughout the month of October, even into early November is a good time for fall planting of spring flowering bulbs.
Excellent. I know folks probably have more questions. I'm going to direct them to your website, so we'll go ahead and put those up for our viewers now so that they can reach out to both Sarah and John. We have mudomaha.com and extension.unl.edu. Sarah, John, thank you so much for being here today and talking with us about how to winterize your home. And thanks to our student crew working so hard behind the scenes, to our viewers for watching. As we close, a trip to Vala's pumpkin patch as seen through the lens of Gonzalo Avalos, a junior here at UNO. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu. Support for Consider This is provided by
There's a new place for senior care, a place with flexible meal plans and 24-hour room service. A place where seniors get the care they need in the comfort of home. Home Instead Senior Care.